That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, he's
Over at your place the other day.
yeah. He's undergoing experimental stuff right there. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get ahead and get rolling in the second half, so please find your seats. All right, so as we're getting started, I want to quick announce we have a couple of dignitaries in the room. So first off, Senator Bryce Reeves, right here. He's our very colleague hunting tonight, so I can see you, Bryce. We have the Mayor of Orange, Harrison Clef. Harrison, would you stand up right here? A supervisor from here in Orange County, Keith Marshall. Keith. And all the way from Madison, just across the way, Jim Jewett, right there. Is there any elected officials that I missed? Well, there is, I already recommend you. Thank you, Karen. Yes, there is no supervisor play. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and get rolling into our second act here. And I forget, who was the last question last time? That's okay, I'm just going to randomly point one and we'll go from there. So, our first question in the second half, what initiatives will you champion to support small businesses and stimulate local economies? And we'll start with you, Karen, and then we'll go to Cliff.
Okay, well, Governor Youngkin has done a great job helping Virginia become the best place to do big business in the nation. And I agree that small businesses need the same help. I'm a small business owner, but I have many friends who have built pretty decent sized small businesses, whether it be restaurants or printing shops. And they all tell me the same thing. They say, we're being taxed to death. The business tangible taxes, restaurants are being taxed on every piece of equipment down to every single chair in their restaurant. Manufacturers are paying inventory tax, where if they have excess inventory in their warehouses, they're being taxed on all that. The taxes are too high. It's almost like we're punishing productivity. We need to lower the taxes and allow these businesses to thrive. In regards to the big businesses that Youngkin's been able to bring in, he's brought in Amazon, Lego, and many others. We need to continue to build on that success. One of the things that we need to do is remain a right-to-work state and not allow forced unionization of our workers. The other thing is that once again, keep taxes low. We have an opportunity to bring in manufacturing from overseas with Trump's tariff policies. He's luring people back to the United States, and we can make Virginia a soft landing spot for them by keeping our taxes low and remaining a right-to-work state.
For years, people have asked me, how can government help agriculture? And I see agriculture as a business. And my comments always been the exact same. The government can stay out of agriculture. We need to take on the mentality being in the government that the approach has to be is how can we help you? Regulations have to be cut. We've got to have a welcoming attitude towards business. And it definitely has a trickle-down effect. You get jobs out of it. You get better paying jobs out of it. And that's both on the small and the large side of business. The other one is certainly you get better education sector out of it because you're going to need skilled labor. And whether or not that skilled labor that's gone through a 4-year or 2-year program or directly into the workforce, there is tremendous value in both avenues to go down. And we've got to get people employed so they can be more constructive. The side on the right to work, Karen couldn't have hit it any better. It is critical that we retain the right to work right here in Virginia. If we we start going down the unionized path, we see what happens to these areas. Prices go up, everything goes up, and businesses are reluctant to come here. We hired a zoning administrator in Madison, and we went through multiple rounds of interviews. But the first thing I said was, when somebody walks into your office, what do you say? And he responded back, how can I help you? And that has to be the mentality. If we are not working for the businesses, and what are we doing? I always remember the State of the Union, I'll infuriate everybody with this, it was Obama, and he made the statement that government creates business. That is 100% incorrect in every way. The private sector is what it is. We just have the privilege of representing them.
Thank you both. So our next question is kind of trashy. Virginia is a net importer of garbage. How can we change that? We'll start with Clay and then go to Karen.
I was just talking to this gentleman about this. Trash is a business. I hate to say that the regulations to open landfills right now is just onerous, doesn't even start to describe it. If we can bring some of that in and we can dispose of it in the right way, then a clean way, a way that doesn't disturb a way of life, I view that as just like any other business. I'm sorry, it is just part of it. We know in Madison, we have a transfer station to upgrade our trash facilities as a dump like it used to be. The regulations were just over the top. We do have to recycle. I think it's 15% is the amount that we're supposed to do. We had ladies come in a while back and they had ended up putting a bunch of air tags in their recycling, and we're wondering where it went. Turns out air tags are not recyclable. It costs localities a tremendous amount of money to recycle. We certainly want to do what's right for the planet and for our communities. But if we can do business with other people, this is just another commodity.
Well, you told me something I didn't know. I didn't realize we were the number, what'd you say? We were the
We're a
number?
net importer.
Net importer of trash. Wow, I don't know that we
I said
should.
it wrong. That makes,
Net importer. No, you said it right.
oh, I said it right.
Okay, net importer of trash.
No.
The first thing that comes to my mind is, why are we trying to put solar panels on our beautiful green farmlands? Why don't we just put it in areas where they're allowing trash to be put? But as far as the business of trash, I guess there is money to be made there, but of course we want to take care of our state as well. I would have to look into that issue a little bit more, but it's something that, you know, if that's something that's of deep concern to you, if that's your question, please see me this next week and I will look into it further for you.
So in the recent couple of years, mental health is becoming a growing issue across our Commonwealth. We're seeing increased cases in terms of demands for facilities, spaces. What would you do to address these issues if you were elected delegate? Start with Karen and then go to Clay.
You said mental health facilities?
Mental health, mental health, yes, facilities and mental health as an issue in general.
Okay. Well, the mental health is a big concern. We're seeing more and more young people deal with high levels of anxiety and depression. We're seeing gender confusion. Again, I think a lot of this starts in the school. Kids are anxious. They've got a lot of pressure on them. They're also being indoctrinated and over-sexualized in ways that make their minds damaged. I'm a Christian. I think a lot of these answers are found in God. I think some of these things that we're struggling with as a society, we need to look less to government to be our savior on everything and start looking to our actual savior, Jesus Christ. He's got to help us with a lot of these issues. But what can the government do? Well, there was once upon a time when we would get dangerous people off the streets that were struggling with mental illnesses. We need to be able to do that once again. We can do it in a compassionate way, but there needs to be a place for them to go to where they're not endangering other people. As far as, what was the second part of the question? You said mental health facilities and...
So what would you do if you were elected delegate?
Yeah, I would, allow for more mental health facilities to take care of people who need help. But also, I just encourage people to, seek community and faith. That's the real answer for this problem.
Mental health real challenge. And unfortunately, mental health is also tied to, in a lot of cases, tied to some drug abuse type things. And I am very big on dealing with illegal drugs. I mean, we have to be getting those off our streets. We use one of our big things that we were doing in Madison was a big problem going back, and I know it's a problem for everybody in the 62nd, is finding mental health facilities for ECO and TDO people that it's temporary detaining order because they're a threat to themselves or a threat to somebody else. Our sheriff's office was having to drive all the way down to Galax, Virginia. That's 2 deputies, 8 hours down, 8 hours back. It is a tremendous cost to the county, and in turn it wears out our deputies. They do a great job, but that is a lot of work. What we have done is we sold our old county administration building to Encompass. Encompass is going to start locally offering some mental health services and some substance abuse. They're going at it in a slow way, but at least it's something in our county. It's always been in Culpeper and Warrington, and that a lot of these people, they're at the time of most critical need. Going all the way up there, finding transportation up there, that's a real problem. The other one that I have to go down, I've got a handful of young men that work for me that are great. The philosophy we go to is get tough. I think that's a mentality that we kind of all need to shift back to, and we certainly need to be sympathetic to people that have mental health issues, but we all need to get a little thicker skin.
Thank you both. So in Virginia, as well as in the 62nd District, we have a large veteran population. What are some specific plans that you have to address issues facing our veterans in the district and across Virginia at large? We'll start with Clay, and then go to
We just had Memorial Day. It disappoints me that I couldn't get to every locality in their celebration. Madison had one this year. I was talking to somebody earlier about it. It was great to see how many people were there valuing veterans and there to support and to memorialize people that have given their lives for the country and served for the country. Any kind of infringement upon veteran benefits in any way I will be against. They have done their duty, certainly. We've got to be remembering, my grandfather, he was a colonel in the Air Force, he is certainly an influential member in my life and he valued the community, he valued people, and I think that's one that the military instills in there with that service. But any kind of cut to services, anything we do to help veterans, there is no negatives there at all. It is all positive, even with cost associated.
I agree with that. I'm all for cutting the budget in ways, but taking benefits from our veterans seems to be the last place that we do that from. This past General Assembly, I know that veteran benefits were going to be potentially cut out of the budget, and I've got a lot of girlfriends still in Virginia Beach whose husbands are Navy SEALs, and they're calling me saying, "What's going on? Do you have any contacts? Who can we talk to?" And fortunately, we were able to get that included back into the budget by applying a lot of pressure. But we need to, of course, be thankful and have hearts full of gratitude for our veterans. I'm a military wife, and I still have a lot of people I love and care about serving in the armed forces. They get out of the military, they've got a lot of health problems, they need to have care for that, and they've got mental health problems as well. We need to support them with everything because they have given so much to secure our liberties here and defend our freedom.
So this time we'll start with Karen. What is your position on abortion and same-sex marriage amendments? Start with Karen and then go to Clay.
Well, I've already said this, but I'll say it again because I do feel so strongly about it. My faith is the foundational part of who I am and of my platform. I strongly believe that life begins at conception. It should be protected from conception. It's the earliest form of a human being, and we should be protecting all human beings, all innocent human beings. I know that's an unpopular position here in the state, even in our party. You know, people are wanting to make exceptions here or there. It's murder. Let's just call it what it is. It's murder. It may be an inconvenient pregnancy, but it's still a life that God created. And I happen to know women and men actually who are the product of rape and some of the more challenging issues that people bring up in regards to abortion. Those lives still matter. I'm 100% pro-life. I believe that we can be compassionate towards women and the babies at the same time. We need to be a society that celebrates life. We can walk alongside women in difficult situations, but we don't need to compound trauma by adding more trauma and shame and making that choice to take an innocent human life. As far as the marriage amendment, once again, I believe in the created order of God. God designed marriage and He gets to define it, and His definition is it's between a man and a woman. If you want to have a civil union, you can go and do that, but God created marriage and He gets to define it.
I am pro-life. I mentioned earlier that Delegate Scott was talking about a compromise with the Democrats at 15 weeks. It's certainly, 15 weeks is far out there, and probably needs to be shorter. The big thing that we need to be doing is we need to be providing services in a cost-effective way for expecting mothers, and give them some type of support network through the community, through the faith-based community, anywhere we can to make them understand that they're part of our community. And this is not just a thing that there is self-responsibility that goes with the privilege of, but in the same sense, the whole community needs to be involved and help this whole scenario. On gay marriage, I won't oppose anything at the state level, but the Supreme Court's already ruled on this, and the Supreme Court's certainly above me. When they decide to go a different direction or it's challenged in a way, then that's a rule of law at this point.
So in this community, we obviously have a lot of farmers here. I think we even saw farmers for Youngkin sign in the back there. So this question is very much about agriculture in general. Do you plan to continue support for the Virginia veterinary grant? And it's also two-parter. So also, where do you stand on pesticide usage? We'll start with Clay and then go here.
The veterinarian initiative that was put out last week, the week before, certainly something that's needed. We need more veterinarians. I toured early in my 20s, now I'm old at 41, but I toured University of Tennessee's vet school, talked to the dean down there. He said, well, what are you planning on doing? I said, well, I'm sitting here with you. I mean, probably going down the veterinarian path. He said, hey, you gonna do your own practice? I said, no, probably not. Probably go back and farm. He said, don't become a veterinarian. The cost burden and time allocation towards that devotion, and I see Dr. Weekly over here, who is a large animal veterinarian. It is a major accomplishment to go through and get your veterinarian license. We certainly need more of them. There is a very large cost associated with it. Anything we can do to try to get more into agriculture, we need to be doing. And it provides better services, it provides a better food system, better management, every aspect. Having veterinarians out in the field that are accessible to everybody is just good for agriculture. On pesticides and herbicides, it is a tool that agriculture uses. We know about the Chesapeake Bay TMDL load, and we understand about how chemicals and fertilizers affect the bay and our waterways. The reality of it is in Northern Virginia, where you've got all these lush green lawns, it's easy to spend a couple $100 on a bunch of fertilizer. In the farming world, with fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides, it costs tens of thousands of dollars. The agricultural world is using any tool we have in the most effective way based on the cost associated with it. We have nutrient management plans and everything under the sun to make that management as good as we can.
Well, farmers are the strength of this district, and they're one of the pillars of our nation as well. food security is national security. And as much as we don't like pesticides and things like that, the reality is in big farming, you have to use a certain amount in order to produce the quantities of food that we need. And so we need to be flexible in these areas. Of course, we want good soil. Of course, we want clean water. We're going to have to balance those things. But I'm going to be a representative that listens to farmers. They know farming. In regards to, what was the first part of the question?
In regards to the Virginia veterinary grants.
Yes, so that just recently, I think, was granted. Once again, goes back to national security because of our food security. We need to support our farmers. I don't have a farm, but I do have 5 donkeys, and I have goats, and I have chickens, and it's hard to find a vet to come out and take care of those animals, and I'm not providing food for my family from those animals. So when it comes to our food supplies and the veterinary care required to maintain that, we need to do what we need to do, and I support continuing it.
They're donkeys for Trump, just so you know.
The donkeys for Trump is what I'm hearing from a gentleman in a cowboy hat outside.
No disruptions.
Make sure they'll know that.
Yeah, we have to invoke the rules, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So, some politicians are fighting against parents' rights to homeschool. What is your position on parents' rights to homeschool in Virginia? We'll start with Karen and then go to Clay.
Well, I'm a homeschool mom, and this past General Assembly, a Senate bill came through, and they were attempting to strip the religious exemption and some of the privacy rights of homeschoolers. I showed up, and so did a whole bunch of other homeschool families, and we pushed back against that. Fortunately, we were able to stop it. But we know it's coming back. Like I said, I'm for school choice. I love having the ability to homeschool. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It gives a lot of flexibility, and quite honestly, my kids are able to spend a few hours doing school, and then they have a lot more time to do other things. I want to support the ability for families to have homeschool. And I will do everything I can to be an advocate for that and to push back any sort of infringement on that parental choice.
Parents' choice is paramount. That is something I think that everybody should appreciate. Homeschooling is just another component of education that goes to those parents' choice. The one that's come up recently is the money should be tied to the actual students. The other side that goes with that, though, is that we've got to figure out how to some extent, to merge the communities, to provide more services as far as sports experiences, anything that public education can do in aid that is permissible by the parents in the homeschooling community. And that's homeschool, private, any of the aspects of education. The money being tied to them will certainly help homeschool families that are getting very little at this point. And then in turn, if we can figure out a way to work with them in public education, we can adjust our ADM numbers, which account for the funds coming from the state and the Fed to the public locality. And even if we could accomplish a percentage of that, it will certainly help some of our smaller school districts.
Fantastic. So my next question is going to be about an issue we've been dealing with in Northern Virginia for a little bit now, and I'm sure it's working its way down. Governor Youngkin had prioritized economic development in Virginia, which had led to a rapid growth in the building of data centers. What is your position on data centers in general and legislation to regulate them at in State Hall? So we'll start with Clay.
I don't know where you're going. Data centers are a big thing, and economic development is certainly something that's needed in rural America and rural Virginia. Madison doesn't have any data centers yet. I believe Culpeper is going to be up to 6, and they'll expect about $100 million in revenue from that. Counties are using it to shore up where they don't have to raise taxes. We need business. It is important. There are power constraints that are put in there. We just had a presentation at the board level from REC, who's our electrical provider. They've set up a subsidiary for users that are above, I believe it's 25 kW. And that should prohibit the effects of data center usage and electricity costs to trickle down to residents. It needs to be a county decision, though. Land use is a county issue. The state should not be pushing this down our throats. We just saw with the site plans and subdivisions, now all of that is going to be administrative. That kind of gets rid of a big portion of checks and balances, which is unfortunate because public input is critical. It is something that each county has to weigh into. They have to find the right locations for it. We certainly, I hear it at the board level on a regular basis, NIMBY issues. Citizens need to understand that we're not going to bring in business, so there has to be something to keep up with these essential services as far as revenue. Data centers are just one aspect. We know Loudon's got about 112 in the pipeline at this point, on top of what they've already done. It's major money, but it has to be a local decision and it has to go through the vetting of the locality.
I totally agree that those decisions belong at the local level. We want people to be able to weigh in on things that are coming into their communities, and so that's where the decisions need to be made. Nobody really likes data centers, but none of us are willing to get rid of our phones. And I know I have like 30,000 photos and videos on my phones, and they go somewhere in the cloud and they end up in the data center, apparently. And so that's why we've got data centers everywhere, because we're all using our technology. And so it's something that we have to accept. We just have to choose where to put them. And that, decision belongs at the local level. In regards to the energy issues that the data centers bring in, we do have the most data centers of any state in the nation. And because of that, we have an energy issue. And we don't want the cost of that electricity to get passed on to you or I. We want the state to come up with a better solution that involves data centers paying for their fair share of their draw of electricity. And so we're going to have to work that out, but I feel hopeful that we will.
So my next question is about representing this district in Richmond. How will you represent our rural lifestyle and values in Richmond? Does that mean like Ryan Zieke riding on a pony or a cat? No? Okay, we'll start with Karen. My jokes don't always land.
Well, one of the things that we love about this rural area is the slower pace of life, our rural values, the green open spaces, and we don't want them covered with solar panels and wind turbines. One of the things I intend to do is push back against some of the state attempts to shove those things down our throat. The Virginia Clean Economy Act was passed in 2020, and because of that requirement to go to carbon-free energy by the year 2045 for Dominion Power, and I think 2050 for Rappahannock, they need hundreds of thousands of acres in order to put solar panels and wind turbines, and go figure, they don't have that in Northern Virginia or Richmond, so they're coming into our rural areas and wanting to take control and take away our choices here for how we want our land and property to be used. And so we need to stand firm against that, protect our beautiful lands, protect our property rights, and protect our rural values. We value faith and family here, and that needs to have a strong voice in Richmond. We don't want to get overrun by the blue dots on our state, and so I plan to be a strong advocate for faith and family and preservation of our beautiful life here.
First of all, you're supposed to be eating the cows, not riding. The big direction on how I represent, I think I do it fairly well in Madison. The focus isn't on me. Like, it shouldn't be on me. It shouldn't be on Karen. It should be on all y'all. That's where we get our directions from. We've got to be out in the communities. This grassroots is just it. Going around to all the different Republican meetings during this campaign is actually great. We've seen all these people that are interested in their future here in Virginia and have vested interest and want to share their opinions, want to go down the path. These are the things we think you all should be doing in Richmond. I'm out in the community all the time. The other one that I do, and it is probably my foolishness, I've been giving out my business card since I was 16 years old. I've had the same exact phone number. I'll give my phone number to anybody. I'm probably one of the easiest persons to search. I give out business cards. It's on every bit of literature that I have. 703-772-5132. I don't care if you're a business owner or truck driver. Give me a call. You have an opinion. You have a thought. You have a question. You have a complaint. I get crazy phone calls too. They're fine. it's a big part of the democratic process.
Our next question comes around land use. How would you decide on issues related to inheritance, specifically land after a family member has passed away, and how that legislation around how that land is passed on to children, etc.? We'll start with Clay and then Karen.
It's a big issue, major issue, and complex. Farm Bureau is one example. Farm Credit, I know, does the same. All educational type of program on how to set up your farm and your acreage and home into different trusts and anything under the sun to protect it from the government. Land use is a local issue when it pertains to using the land. The inheritance of the land, there's no reason for farmers, and it is farmers in a lot of cases, that their kids cannot afford the taxes on that land once the inheritance goes through. People have to be real thoughtful about how they are going through and willing land. There is a structure out there currently. It is not perfect by any means. But it is something we all need to be thinking about and how the next generation will continue the legacy that has been set from our forefathers before us. There are mechanisms. I encourage anybody that's doing it. We all hate lawyers. In the same sense, get a lawyer, and it is something that needs to be set up in the right way, or else the government's going to get it, which is not what we all are working for.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's something that I don't think the government should have much involvement in. If you have property, I think the government needs to stay out of that. If you have an inheritance, I think the government needs to keep its hands off of it. I understand the difficulty if people can't pay the tax burden associated with that land. That's something that the state would have to work out with the family. I'm not familiar with, honestly, policy regarding that, but it's something I would look into. My overall opinion is I want to keep as much government out of our lives as possible. In regards to inheritances, certainly I don't want the government trying to tax something a second time when they've already taxed it over and over and over again.
So this will be our last question before our closing statements from each of the candidates. In a respectful way, what differentiates you from your opponent to Republican primary voters? And we'll start with Karen and then go to Clay. Sorry, Karen. Not too mean.
No, that's okay. Well, I mean, for one, I'm a woman and he's a man, you know. Republicans, we know the difference between those two things. You know, I think we need a few more women's voices on the conservative side that are not coming from an angry feminist perspective, but from a thoughtful, honestly faith-oriented perspective that understands what we need for our families, for our children. That's something I feel like I can bring a voice to. Secondly, my faith is the most important thing in my life. It's something that will direct every single vote that I take. It's something that I hope brings you comfort. And then as well, I think the fact that, you know, my background is in engineering, I'm going to use that skill set to be a problem solver. Now, we've got some problems in infrastructure, and we've already talked about energy over and over again, but that's going to be one of my focuses, and I look forward to being a problem solver for all of you.
I am a farmer. I've been doing this political thing for a long time because I thought it was something that I could do well. Starting at the planning commission level, going to Board of Supervisors meetings when there wasn't anybody else there, and just sitting there and watching what they did, and now having the privilege of being on the Board of Supervisors for 12 years, which is an absolute privilege and an honor, and then to be the chairman, I'm hoping that I've sucked up a whole lot of information. I understand land use, I understand constraints monetarily from the state and the feds, I understand the issues on economic development, school populations, infrastructure looking towards the future, and costs that are just skyrocketing in every aspect. serving for all this time, I've learned it kind of the hard way, and it's based on experience. And it's something, it's a privilege that I get to be. I think that with the farmer common sense, you get a pretty good product. Madison Board of Supervisors makes, the chairman makes $10,000, the board members are making like $9,500. It's always been the same price. I ran my hourly rate several years ago. I am less than $2 an hour. We're certainly not doing this for the money. This is something that it's a devotion to our communities. And no matter which one of us you pick, we're community minded. And that's who it's a great privilege to be able to look around and see people that are in my community that support me and represent, and I can represent. And then hopefully, with all these different things and the barrage of issues that come in front of the county, hopefully that stuff I know how to navigate, and in Richmond it would translate into a smaller government and more localized items.
Fantastic. And before we get to the closing remarks, we're going to quickly do some quick thank yous. First off to the panelists here, Blair, Jacob, and Gary. Thank you guys so much for your work. I also want to thank a lot of people behind the scenes. So we have 3 of our unit chairs that did a lot of work to put this together tonight. Deanna Marshall, if you would stand. Deanna's in the back. Thank you, Deanna. Tom Saracen. And Anthony Hewitt is outside. Thank you all for having a vision for this event this weekend. I also want to thank our 2 candidates for coming up and putting your time, putting your lives out there in the name of service. So thank you both. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank all of you folks for coming out and being part of democracy tonight. We can only do so much as candidates or as political party members in order to help drive home results and win elections. But it takes people in communities like yourselves that are coming out here tonight, getting educated, getting to know these great candidates and the issues that matter to them, and hopefully they're understanding the issues that matter to you all. And hopefully that's going to help us drive stronger campaigns and win elections here in Virginia. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And to close us out.
Ben. Thank you, Ben Hanscamp.
All right, that's it. Little hits from Jacob. So to close this out, we're going to start with Clay and then finish off with Karen. Clay, you're first.
Like you just spoke, thank you all for coming and listening to our nonsense. Hopefully we've kind of enlightened who we are. This is a special part of Virginia. It is something that, it's my home, it will be my home until I die. This is something big. We do need enhanced representation, and we need our representation to be in our communities. We also need to adapt with the times. If we don't adapt, then we're just going to get run over. On a regular basis, you read in the newspapers, you see it on the local news, is that we are behind. There are challenges that are in front of us as far as density, land use options, where things are coming, but we don't have the infrastructure to hold it together. We need to be focused on being proactive instead of just always being reactive. It's a real problem in government, and it's a problem that if we get too far ahead, we're just spending money, which is contrary to what everybody here believes. I am hoping that my experience will translate into representing the 62nd district at the state level. I come up with simple solutions. I think people are tired of politics where it's just people grinding against each other. We've got to accomplish something for people. It improves our quality of life. I do also, right to work is immense. We must protect that as well. But we also need to be a unified party as the Republicans. It is important that we come out that way and we lead not just Virginia, but the country in moving forward and keeping Virginia at the top of the ladder. We are privileged to live here. We're privileged to live in the 62nd. We've got to go to Richmond and keep things things going in a positive direction. Thank you all for having me. I would appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you, Culpeper, Green, Madison, and Orange committees for hosting this event tonight. Thank you to the audience for your great questions. It was a pleasure to be with you tonight. And thank you, Clay. I think we both benefited from this healthy exchange tonight. I'm a Christian, I'm a mother, I'm a military wife, and I'm an engineer and small business owner right here in Orange County. I'm dedicated to serving this district that I love. There are many reasons I could point to for why I'm running. Democrats are obviously after our constitutional rights. They're trying to force us into property decisions that we don't want. They're after our land. But the number one reason and top motivation that keeps me up at night are my children and the future that they will inherit. Virginia's in a difficult place. We've had 4 years of Governor Youngkin, fortunately, to be able to veto really bad legislation coming out of a Democrat-controlled General Assembly. We may not have that moving forward, and it's critical that we send fighters into the House of Delegates in order to put a stop from some of the negative things we see coming forward. But quite frankly, terrible doesn't even come to summarize what we see coming out of the left. They support the killing of unborn children in the womb up to the moment of birth. They support the sexualization and indoctrination of children in our schools. They support pornography in our libraries, because I've seen it, and I've been up there to speak about it. They support boys competing in girls' sports, boys going into girls' bathrooms. We just saw in Fairfax a grown man go into women's locker rooms. The list goes on. Make no mistake, our children are under direct assault. And that is the number one reason why I want you to send me to Richmond, because I intend on standing between our children and everyone who seeks to do them harm. If you send me to Richmond, I promise I will protect your freedoms, uphold the Constitution, and fight with every fiber of my being to ensure that our children inherit the blessings of liberty and that they will be kept safe from dangerous policies coming from the left. Thank you for having me tonight, and I hope I can count on your vote on June 17th.
Thank you both so much. And before you guys all head home tonight, I just have a few last things. First off, if you're not a member of your local GOP unit, all you GOP unit chairs, can you raise your hand? Larry, Todd, Jacob, Lawrence. So if you're not a member of your local unit, I would encourage you to get off the sidelines, get into the fight, join your local unit, and be part of the change that we need this November. Secondly, we have an upcoming Unity rally in Culpeper. So it's going to be on June the 14th. It's going to be from 1 till 4 p.m. right downtown, the headquarters in Culpeper. I invite you guys all to come to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. He's making hamburgers for Larry? Yep. So I'm going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So please join us for that. And last but not least, please everyone drive home safe tonight. It's getting dark out there, and I'm so glad you all joined us. Have a great night.